It's showtime.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
You know, the right to bear arms is because that's the last form of defense against tyranny.
Washington is fundamentally corrupt. There are more words in the IRS code than there are in the Bible.
Made in America, heard round the world. You're listening to Blunt Force Truth. I'm Chuck Woolery, along with my co-host Mark Young. And we're not going to rehab, folks. I'm not going. I'm doing the Amy Whitehouse, or whatever it was.
What were you going to rehab for? Is it for your toxic masculinity? Or
my toxic masculinity and being white and everything else that's against me. I'm not going to rehab. I'm just staying the way I am. Sorry.
Have they come up with a good rehab? Because we already took the test. So the people might remember a couple weeks ago we took the test that showed how much of an oppressor Chuck is and how much of an oppressor I am. Chuck was an angel getting their bells, I think, or their wings. So Chuck came in as a 3 on the oppression scale.
Mm-hmm. That was not good.
I came in as a 1 on the oppression scale.
Well, you're Attila the oppressor.
And it said that we actually, the two of us, are oppressing more than 100% of the people of the world. So we're oppressing people that have not been born yet. It did all the way, Chuck, if you're not going to go to rehab, it did give you 3 other options. It said that you could explore your gayness.
Right.
It said you could join Islam.
Mm-hmm.
And it also
recommended with Islam, by the way. Have you ever noticed this? I mean, it's so apparent to me. But before you get to the third one, let me say this. Islam has everything in common with fascism and Marxism. They're always bound together. They have been, I mean, during the Second World War, the fascists owned all the Islamists in the Middle East. It was like a battle that we had to win, and we eventually did. But they were aligned with all the fascists in Europe.
Well, nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed. What is that all about?
Nothing's changed. By the way, the third thing you can do is give all your wealth to charity.
I've already done that.
Have you? No, ex-wives are not charities.
Okay.
So, that doesn't qualify.
So confusing.
So, I mean, the ex-wives might think they're charities, but they're not.
Yeah.
So, at any rate, Nancy Pelosi came out, Chuck, and said that
we're not going to impeach Trump. We're not going to do it.
We're not going to impeach him.
Maybe in a couple of weeks I might.
But maybe I'll change my mind. She said that at no time in the past has she ever said there was not a crisis at the southern border.
Oh, come on. What is that all about? I know everybody knows that's not true.
She has dropped into a fugue state at some point.
You know what it is? I think that she understands that most people don't pay attention, that only people around Washington, New York, and certain circles are the only ones that pay attention. So she can say these ridiculous things, and half the nation or 3/4 of the nation will say, well, yeah, right, you never said that.
Yeah, that makes sense. She also said that further investigations will not move this country forward.
Further investigations in Democrats.
Yes. She said investigating Comey, investigating Lynch, investigating Hillary.
That won't help.
Investigating Clapper. None of this is going to help the country move forward.
No, the water's not muddy enough.
It will not heal the nation.
Mm-hmm.
What will heal the nation will be to drag the president through a useless, go-nowhere impeachment process.
That makes perfect sense.
And I have a question. Here's what I don't understand. There's going to be an election next year.
There is.
When that election comes up, you've got an entire Congress that is going to go back home. And what is the accomplishment they had other than they may be able to say that they failed at impeaching the president?
And failed at a few investigations because they certainly haven't done anything else. However, I must say, I'm not sure that's a bad thing. When Congress is doing nothing, sometimes it's better.
But what will the Congress have done? The Democrats will have had 2 years of the Congress. What will they say? This is what
their accomplishment
accomplished.
Right.
It will be zero.
Well, then they'll blame Trump.
Well, Chuck, today we have a great guest. We have
really excited about this guest. I honestly am.
I know.
I've never met Charlie Kirk personally. I've seen him on television. I've seen him on Fox. I follow him on Twitter. I think he's brilliant. He's very, very smart. And
he's really good on Twitter, too, isn't he?
Really good on Twitter. Yeah, he is king. The man is a Twitter king.
Well, Charlie Kirk, welcome to Blunt Force Truth.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So you got a lot on your mind. You started Turning Point, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
and tell everybody exactly what that is.
Well, Turning Point USA, and thanks for having me. I'm a big fan of you guys.
Thank you, sir.
We're the nation's largest student movement dedicated to educating, empowering, and organizing the next generation around free markets, limited government, American exceptionalism. These shouldn't be wildly controversial things, but the flag sitting behind you right there is considered hate speech on many
controversial.
Yeah.
So what is it with this whole thing about conservatives on campus, that nobody wants them on campus, nobody likes them, we're just these terrible people out here? There's this whole perception, and it's been going on for a long, long time. This is not really new, because I personally believe that the Republican Party as a party hates conservatives maybe more than the Democrats do.
Yeah, I mean, and look, there's very little difference between the two traditional parties, and this is why I'm such a huge supporter of Donald Trump, is liberating the citizenry from the monolithic think of both political parties, I think has been so helpful to the political discourse. And he gets no credit for this in the media whatsoever. No. But, just something yesterday that I'm so in support of, when the president critiqued these stupid, endless foreign wars that we've been in the last 20 years. Right. And he did this on Steve Hilton's show. Steve Hilton's a dear friend. And he even went as far to say, we have a military-industrial complex. He said it 3 times, the president did. Where is the media covering this? I thought this was...
who warned against the military-industrial complex?
Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Dwight D. Eisenhower, that far back. Good for you.
It was in his farewell address. Right. And if the entire premise of President Trump is, if it's not helping our country, if it's not helping our citizens, we should reconsider it. And no one can say that the country was benefited by the Iraq War. $7 trillion, 15 years, just endless conflict for what? We got basically nothing out of it. But anyway, what I'm saying is that the Republican Party, and you see this in Justin Amash and previously Jeff Flake and many others, they find Donald Trump to be such a threat because, first of all, he has shown that they've done nothing positive to our country for the last 50 years. In fact, they've done negatives. Secondly, he has liberated a lot of traditional Democrats to leave their party and be part of the Republican movement and the Trump movement. And so I think Donald Trump has been such a big positive for the political kind of discourse in this country, which is totally different than what the media might have you believe. They think that he's ruining the country and we have a crisis of character. No, it's a good thing that we have a president that is not afraid to sign prison reform, and who's a Republican president who comes out and says it's absolutely fine that Pete Buttigieg is an openly gay guy, is married, and moves on to the next topic. I mean, this is stuff that Republicans aren't supposed to be able to say.
Very conservative along with everything else, which is really interesting to me.
Well, that's right. And it's not like he's sacrificing core conservative values, which I hold near and dear. It's actually that he's saying you can believe all these things, but you don't have to be dogmatic about the traditional Republican I call it Republican and Democrat parties. It's no difference between the two of them.
Yeah. Well, there is a difference, really. I mean, if you look at the Republican Party and the Democrat Party, let's be honest. I don't know of many socialists and people who are pushing socialism in the Democrat or the Republican Party, nor have I in the past. Now, it's not that they haven't gone along with it, but they've never fomented those kind of ideas. The Democrats literally have been talking about Marxism and socialism since the late 1800s, early 20s, sure. And pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And now here we are where Obama was talking to a plumber, Joe the plumber, and saying, I am not a socialist, and now everybody's saying, I'm a socialist, vote for me.
Right, and I'll correct this a little bit. I mean, there is distinctions today, in large in part thanks to President Trump, but traditionally, Republicans and Democrats both agreed on one thing: grow government. They might want to grow government for different reasons.
Absolutely agree with that.
So I'll kind of add, I'll totally agree and kind of contextualize this a little bit. But Republicans wanted to grow government in the sense of making the military have endless budgets, and Democrats wanted to grow government to have unlimited welfare programs. Mm-hmm. And look at where our country is because of that. We're $22 trillion in debt. We have an entire federal workforce that most of which is completely unnecessary, right. That are bureaucrats that do nothing to go after us, to penalize us every single day. And so, but today there are huge differences. Make no mistake. I mean, the way that the Republican Party and Democrat Party stand up against each other today, they are a party that does not believe America is the greatest country ever to exist. They're a party that believes that you are entitled to something just because of your existence. They're a party that believes in horribly divisive racial identity politics, so on and so forth.
Right. All based on Marxist socialism. All
That's
based
right.
on Hegel progressivism.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So, Charlie, earlier, previous show, we were talking, and I'd like to get your opinion on the FISA court. And you were just talking about having a government that has grown too big.
Yes.
As we've looked into the FISA court on this program, we have found that the FISA court has issued 33,000 warrants and only rejected 12 in the history of the court. That the court meets in a secret underground bunker. There are no records, no recordings, no oversight, no congressional oversight. And not only are they a rubber stamp for these warrants, but we now learn that the FBI even has another vehicle where they can surveil American citizens without even going to the FISA court, where the FBI themselves can sign their own warrants with no judge in oversight.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And
now, this is government out of control. This is a loss of the Fourth Amendment, and pretty much on point with what happened with Cheryl Atkinson.
Right. And I mean, look, it's anyone listening to this that's a conservative, and I talk about this on my podcast, The Charlie Kirk Show. Anyone who's a conservative or a Trump supporter should always act as if everything you are doing is being listened to by the government. And I hate to be that paranoid about things, but you have 33,000 warrants that have been approved. Oh my goodness. That's
and 12 rejected.
I mean, it's, and by the way, think about this. This is so important. These are not foreign nationals. FISA is surveillance on U.S. citizens. This is the difference. This is surveilling United States citizens, literally, as you said, violating our Fourth Amendment. And what are they doing with these records? Are they cataloging them? And look, I'm not a huge fan of Edward Snowden because I think he could have proved his point without having to go as far as he did to jeopardize classified information, which he went too far. But boy, am I appreciative of the light that he shined on this whole deal, because people thought it was just an unbelievable conspiracy that the government was spying on us. And remember when Donald Trump said, the FBI is spying on me, they're spying on my campaign, everyone laughed at him. Right. And the media still does not cover this. And you go through the political affiliation of the top levels of the FBI, they're all Democrats or they're Republicans that want Democrats. Republicans.
Well, look how Barr was reacted when he said, yes, there was spying. And everybody just went insane. Brennan, Clapper, I mean, you name it. Comey, they all, no, we just surveil. We don't.
Yes, we don't spy on Americans. We just do surveillance.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Spying by, the name is surveillance.
Chuck, how do we fix this? We were talking, like I said, Chuck and I were talking, and I look at this, and I think the FBI's ability to issue their own warrants needs to come to an abrupt halt. And the FISA court needs to be massively stripped of so much of the authority, especially the authority that they gained during the Bush administration.
Well, let me ask you this, Charlie. You know more about this than I do. Isn't the DOJ head of the FBI? I mean, don't they serve under the power of the DOJ, the FBI? So can't the DOJ go in there and say, look, you guys can't do this anymore?
Yeah, without a doubt. That's right. And so Bill Barr, I think, should go clean this up. But remember, Bill Barr was Attorney General and a lot of the stuff was instituted. Mm-hmm. You have to remember, it cuts both ways. I mean, we love Bill Barr now, but Bill Barr was the Attorney General that helped set up a lot of this stuff.
Well, a lot of this stuff, though, is like when we were talking about Benjamin Franklin earlier, when he said, you give up, I forget what it is. What is it, Mark?
It is those who give up security, give up freedom for temporary security.
Will have deserved either one. Right. And so this is what happens sometimes when you start to do these programs that you think are going to serve the country, and they end up serving the government, and they end up working against the country. It's how they evolve, not how they start sometimes.
Right, and they end up serving the ruling class, and ends up serving, and that's what Plato warned us against. Well, I mean, Plato actually advocated for the ruling class, but you could get a argument from Plato and really see what he was wanting. Here's the thing, and you could basically, if you go back in philosophy, the Greeks had this huge debate, and Plato argued for what the left wants right now: a group of philosopher kings that know what's best for our society, that have unlimited power, and we should treat them as if they are demigods, that they know so much. And you saw the entire Obama administration was trying to create a government that was built around this idea that there is truly a group of 30 to 40 highly enlightened people that know what's best for you and me. And here's my evidence for that. Jonathan Gruber. We don't talk about Jonathan Gruber anymore. Do you remember this?
Mm-hmm. Kind of, yeah, not really.
Absolutely.
Refresh me.
Right.
Yeah,
so Jonathan,
I'm old.
Yeah. So it's okay. For your listeners, I'll walk through it. Jonathan Gruber was the architect of Obamacare.
Oh, yeah. The guy from MIT,
this was
right?
one of the huge stories that now no one talks about anymore.
Right.
And he actually went out, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but he said, people are so stupid, people are so dumb that we are going to have to create a system that is going to be good for them because they're so dumb and stupid. And you guys could look up the exact quote. That was the essence of it.
Right.
And so you go back to what Plato talked about. Again, basically everything on the left is chasing Plato, right? That's essentially how
I think Plato's responsible for the allegory of the cave. I'm not sure, but I think
that's right. The allegory of the cave and the shepherd and the ship, all that good stuff, right? And so the left thinks they are so much smarter than us that they want to be able to program our society. But here's the scary thing, guys, is that a lot of Republicans think the same thing too. Mm-hmm. They just look at it differently. They think they can run government differently than the left. They just want a little bit bigger military and a little bit lower taxes for corporations. They don't actually want a decentralized government. They don't actually want DC to have less power. They don't want to get rid of FISA, the FISA warrant, so on and so forth. And so this is the distinction. This is why Donald Trump is a gift to our country. This is why Donald Trump is such a phenomenal president, because he's shattering this wise men of Washington, ruling class, philosopher king status quo that has existed for the last 40 years. And if our country wants any chance of prospering in the future, we have to bring back the idea of individual liberty and shrinking the size of DC. And boy, would getting rid of the FISA courts be a wonderful step in that direction.
It is the nature of all entities, whether individuals, companies, governments. It's this human nature to always expand and try to become bigger and more powerful.
Of course.
So it's very difficult to try to back that up.
Blue Emu works fast and you won't stink. This episode of Blunt Force Truth is brought to you by Blue Emu Pain Relief Products. Now, I've been in show business for many years now, and I'm not slowing down, but I can use a little help every now and then. Blue Emu's family of products are made in America and have become a staple in my life. The deep penetrating formula of Blue Emu Original is best for supporting my muscles and joints, and I'm sure you've seen it. It's on the shelf in a blue and white jar. I also use Maximum Arthritis for any arthritic pain and the lidocaine cream for numbing pain relief. Not only do these Blue Emu formulas work great, there's no chill, no burn, and no odor. Blue Emu, it works fast and you won't stink. Available at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Amazon, and other fine retailers.
So, Charlie, one of the questions that Chuck had brought up earlier, and that was on a previous show, and that was people that hear us talking about the FISA courts. Mm-hmm. They probably say, well, I'm not Carter Page. I'm not the president. I'm not, Papadopoulos. This stuff doesn't matter to me. This matters to this little group of people up here, and that's who's going to get spied on, and it's never going to make its way down to me. So in your opinion, why does this matter to every voter, not just to the Carter Pages?
Here's the argument I always use to extrapolate it. Do you trust the IRS? People say, no, I don't trust the IRS. Imagine an IRS agent with FISA capacity. That's it. Government bureaucrats don't become better people because they're in different departments. It's not like the IRS Lois Lerner, all of a sudden, if she went over to the FBI, she would lose her Machiavellian intentions. And that's
okay, but I spied on you and I caught you cheating on your taxes. Well, you shouldn't have been cheating on your taxes anyways.
Well, but it's not the government's role to violate your individual liberties just to find one error that you made in your life. If we want to become a police state, every citizen will end up in prison. Read the book 3 Felonies a Day. It's amazing how many laws that we as people violate without even realizing it. So the question is, there's a great quote, I think by Alexander Hamilton, or might have been Cicero or I don't know, where he said, the more laws, the less justice. And boy, is that true. And so if we become a country that just has a competition of who can find the most people that are violating the most, minor laws, wow, will that be a scary place to live in? And that's what China has becoming, by the way. This is not This is not theoretical. China has now become a country that has social scores where their government monitors everything that you do, and they rank you based on a capacity or a likeliness to rebel against the government. That's scary.
Then the whole three of us must have a really bad score right now if they're using Twitter.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I mean, and so look, the FISA abuse is something that originally, and this is exactly what the collectivists and the power grabbers always do. They put it under the guise of national security. Well, who could be against national security, right? I don't like terrorism. You don't want terrorism. I want to prevent terrorism. But all of a sudden, you're spying on Donald Trump under the guise of national security. That's the moving of the Overton window, isn't it? I mean, that's what we've been warned about for years. And now all of a sudden, what's next? Are they going to spy on Sean Hannity because what he's saying is really making our country more divisive, which is what Russia wants, which is a thing of national security. My goodness, right? I mean, they can justify anything under this kind of power grab.
Yeah, something you mentioned said they're not passing laws. All they do is pass laws. Don't we need more new laws? Well, it's beyond that, though, Charlie. I mean, it really is. I mean, here Congress is not passing any new laws, which I think is just fine. We don't need any. They should spend their time going back and cleaning up the crap that they created to begin with.
I agree.
That's part of it. The second thing is they don't have to pass new laws. They got bureaucrats everywhere, passing new regulations, which are basically laws.
Yes, that's exactly
they're disguised as regulations when in fact they're laws. You can go to prison with the things that the EPA does and it's incredible. It just goes on and on and on.
And it's that creation of the fourth branch of government. And I'm going to go back to what I talked about, this philosopher kings. The left realized that the way that the Congress is structured and with the courts, it's very hard. It was hard for them to get as much power as they wanted as quickly as they wanted it. So they gave the power to the fourth branch of government, which is the bureaucracies, the IRS, the EPA, the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, and all these types of unregulated, unknown, and unlimited power bureaucracies that can go after a private citizen and completely disrupt and destroy their life. And that's really where they have implemented their power grab. And they're all leftists. They're all collectivists. None of those bureaucracies actually exist to advance individual freedom or protect the rights of the citizens.
If they ever got anything, even akin to the Green New Deal, passed and part of government, we would be in such trouble as individuals. It would just be a nightmare what they could do to us.
That's right.
Well, think about what they could do, guys. When you think about it, with this level of surveillance, we had an FBI agent who was a guest on the show at one point who told us his straight up comment was, if you drove to the office today, I can assure you that I could find something to arrest you for.
Yeah.
FBI agent. Think about when people think about taking this down to the personal level. If I've got the ability to spy on you, do you think I can't find some place where you chastised or punished your child where that's going to be outside the rules, and now I'm taking your children from you? I mean,
we're very close there now.
Right.
If we're not there already.
You look at have you guys seen what happened with Tony Robbins last week?
No.
Yeah, with the Me Too stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Tony Robbins, I don't know if you know Tony. I know him. He's amazing.
I've read a lot of his stuff.
He's an amazing guy. He's a compassionate guy. Now, the thing about Tony is an NLP practitioner and a hypnotist. So what Tony does is people will tell them their sad story, and he will do something called a pattern interrupt. So pattern interrupt is, my story is so sad, and my husband used to abuse me. And Tony will say, so what the hell's your issue now? He doesn't do that because he's abusive. He's doing that to shock you, to get you to pay attention as he helps you move forward. So they've secretly recorded him doing something like that, out of context, completely out of context. And now they're trying to accuse him of being abusive to battered women.
Mm-hmm.
When nothing could be further from the truth. But this gets back to what you said, and that is, assume that every time you open your mouth or do anything, somebody, the government, someone is recording you.
Mm-hmm.
Literally.
Yeah, and that's right. And so, and I'm not trying to create a generation or a country of paranoid people, but our government has far too much power, and you have to just operate as if the government wants to put you in prison. You could look at what they did with Trump. I mean, they've done everything they possibly can to frame him. I mean,
how does he withstand this onslaught every minute of every day?
The only way I can describe it is he's an absolute gift to our country for having the endurance and the perseverance. What this guy has gone through. And I mean, look, there was a January 6th meeting. I talked about this with Mark Levin on my new podcast episode that's coming out very soon, which is I believe that there has been subtle and not so subtle approaches on Donald Trump from the deep state that to try to blackmail him. I think that they tried to blackmail the idea of a special prosecutor investigator to him, to not have him move the embassy to Jerusalem, to not have him cancel the Iran deal, to not have him deregulate the American economy. And I think he said, screw you. I'm going to do what I said I'm going to do. I mean, what heroism, right? And I can't necessarily prove that, but I can infer that. And that's what I'm saying is I can infer that the deep state will go to any means necessary to protect their power. And it does feel that way, that they would go to the sense to try to intimidate this president. And he's done everything he possibly can to do what he said he's going to do. And the country's in a much better place today than it ever has been. But boy, do we have to clean up the highest levels of the FBI. People are really saying, oh, wait for this IG report. Wait for this IG report. I'm telling you, if you think an IG report is going to be the thing that's going to bring them down, I think you're wrong. I would not put your faith in an intergovernmental audit or report. I'm trying to play down expectations. I had this conversation with someone I really respect. He's on Fox all the time. He said, the IG report will be the end of Comey. I said, I don't know. They're going to do everything they can to clean up and to edit and to make sure things are not in there. So there's going to have to be a lot more cleaning of house if we want to make sure we protect liberty and freedom.
Well, when we look at the Mueller report, for instance, just to back that up, number one, Mueller didn't have to write a report. He wasn't required to write a report, correct? He was required to come up with a conclusion.
Well, right.
Guilty or not guilty.
Well, right.
He's a prosecutor.
And the conclusion should have started from not guilty. And so if the conclusion was not guilty, there's a report to justify a negative. I mean,
exactly.
And so, but with Bill Clinton, for example, Bill Clinton and Ken Starr, there was actual criminal referrals that were made from that because Bill Clinton did lie under oath. Remember, Bill Clinton did lie about Monica Lewinsky and all this stuff, but Mueller did not actually have a clean case of obstruction. So he just listed out what could possibly, maybe almost be obstruction. And look, you cannot prove a negative, and this is so important, and this is what totally upsets me about the media, is that you can't prove a negative. So we have to go from the presupposition that Donald Trump is innocent. The media gives him no such luxury. The media gives him they afford him no such right of innocence. Why does this matter? So now all of a sudden they think he's guilty because he visited Russia once in his life for a teen Miss Universe pageant or something stupid. Therefore, he has to prove his innocence. Well, if there was ever an instance of proving innocence, it would be the Mueller report. My goodness, 400 pages and they couldn't find anything?
Now, what if he went and had his honeymoon in Russia? That's okay.
Well, that's Bernie Sanders. So Bernie and the Soviet Union. I mean, that only horrifies me even further that Bernie Sanders went and saw the Soviet Union. He saw the famine. He saw the poverty. He saw the suffering. And he became more of a socialist after that. And as I always say, when I do my podcast and when I do my speeches, Bernie saw something that he liked. He saw how much power that the elites were able to have in a socialist society. That's what he saw that he liked. He wanted to be a philosopher king. And boy, in the Soviet Union, did the philosopher kings exist. They were the richest. They had the most power. They were organizing society, but they were just a couple steps away from perfection and utopia, right?
Right. This is oligarchy, right?
That's what it's oligarchy. It's kleptocracy. It's all the things that the left has always been, they want. All the left wants is power. It's just the means of how they get that power, whether it be through democratic socialism or more totalitarian socialism. They want to be the most important people in the world. They want to wake up every day and have banners and parades made in their names so they can organize society as they see fit.
So they don't really see people smarter. They don't, as I say, Chuck, they don't really think that their philosophy is good in as much as free everything is the plan. That's a vehicle to get to what they really believe, which is they are superior in intellect.
Well, that's part of it. I mean, Bernie Sanders does believe that there's a way to organize society away from private property. And again, these ideas go as old as Rousseau and Plato. It's not exactly like Bernie Sanders is a newcoming philosopher here. But the common denominator is this. When Bernie Sanders is given the opportunity to live out his own philosophy, he doesn't.
None of them do, really.
Well, of course not. So that's the whole thing, is that if they were true Marxists, if they were truly committed to these ideas, I would have respect if Bernie Sanders lived in a shack in in Brooklyn. And he lived out his philosophy. I would have respect if Bernie Sanders refused to ever fly on a private plane. I would have respect if Bernie Sanders wrote a book and actually gave it away for free on his website and asked for a voluntary contribution instead of selling it for $28. Then I would say, okay, he actually believes the nonsense that he preaches. He
walks the walk.
Of course. And by the way, I'm a capitalist. I live like a capitalist, right? Yeah. And so there's no contradiction in that. And but here's the thing is that he does not live those things out. All he cares about is power, using these things to be able to amass the most amount of political power as possible, as quickly as possible, use these ideas as a way to control the population so he can become more important.
So let me ask you something, Charlie. You go to college campuses, right?
That's correct, all the time, yes.
And how are you received there?
Well, it depends. I mean, college.
Ben Shapiro, people like that, they're thrown off campus. Laura Ingraham is thrown off campus. I mean, every conservative, every place else, all I hear is they're turned down. The police can't control the mobs. Blah blah blah.
How's it for you? There is some truth to that. I mean, and the mob is inherent in the left because when you have a mob, you've lost your sense of individuality and you've lost your sense of self-reflection and, essentially the individual. But yeah, I mean, look, it's getting a lot better. It's not that students are opposed to our ideas. It's not that they've never been exposed to them at all in the first place. And we just find that so many students are hungry and curious for the opposition viewpoint, that are looking for another side, another perspective. And we're just so thankful for the opportunity to present that to them.
It's like taking the gospel of Christ to the Amazon.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it really is. It's to the natives out there that just haven't heard anything.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's right.
Which I happen to do that actually. Yeah. But if you so on the college campuses then, all this hatred against conservatives, is it really at the student level or is it really at the professor level where it's being fomented and pushed into the student body?
No, it's definitely it starts at the professor level. And this goes back as far to the Frankfurt School in the 1930s where they infiltrated our country.
And where is the Frankfurt School today?
Well, the Frankfurt School is everywhere now. I mean,
where its headquarters is where though?
I think
Columbia University, New York City.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Moved there in 1938 from Germany because Hitler was all over him.
What school was it again? What?
Columbia University.
Oh, Columbia. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. So yeah, I mean, look, the radicals in the universities, and here's what's really important to realize: there's not that many of them. There's only like 3,000 of these professors that have huge population control. Think about that. 3,000 people are determining the future of our country.
That's the intellectuals, the smarter people.
This is what, and I keep going back to this. This is what the left has always wanted, and they've always wanted a group of philosopher kings that have unchecked influence over society. And these professors hate markets. They hate America. They hate the idea of gender roles. They hate the Judeo-Christian construct. They have so much power over our society. So you have 3,000 people that will teach 3,000 people every year, right? Because these professors teach in these big lecture halls. Wow, you're talking about millions and millions and millions of students that are being indoctrinated by these radical Marxists. And then they're teaching the teachers. So these education classes, these soon-to-be elementary school teachers and these soon-to-be high school teachers are being taught by the very same Marxists that were just taught by the other Marxists. And it goes on and on and on. And then there's no way to disagree with their dogmatic viewpoint. No private property, no markets. America's a horrible place. If you don't believe it, then you're not as informed as we are because look at all my degrees and look at how smart I am.
And you'll flunk my class.
That's exactly right. That's right. So
you said something earlier when you first started. You spoke of American exceptionalism as being part of the driving force behind Turning Point USA. But when we listen to the main street media, when we listen to people on the left, we understand that American exceptionalism doesn't exist, and it never existed, that we were never a great country. How do we get past that? How do we overcome? They have such a big soapbox and many voices.
These ideas come directly from the university. The strain of anti-Americanism starts in our lecture halls. And here's the scary thing is whatever happens on college campuses will soon happen in the halls of Congress. AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, everything that they profess comes directly from our universities and our college campuses.
Listen, in my lifetime, I'm watching the 60s revisited in the last 10 years.
Yeah, except
the Congress. I'm watching it.
Yeah, except exactly the 60s they're now serving in Congress. They're not just burning down campuses. It's really scary. And so look, here's the thing. I mean, obviously, we believe America is the greatest country ever to exist. It was today, and it was 20 years ago. It was 40 years ago. I've never said America is a perfect country. We're not a perfect country, and perfection and utopianism should be rejected. However, there's never been a country even close to the generosity, the benevolence, the productivity, the acceptance, the capacity for achievement and excellence as America. I mean,
you know that, but do other people know that?
Not enough.
I know that.
Not enough. And here's my big message for people is now the idea of America is now on referendum. It's now a divisive issue. It's no longer just about Republican or Democrat, high taxes, low taxes, healthcare. No, that doesn't matter. We have to get down to the root of it. And this is what AOC talks about all the time. We're a racist, bigoted, homophobic country. How many Democrats running for president feel as if they have to say that every day? Can they say one nice thing about America? I mean, would it kill them to say a nice thing about our country?
That's been going on, obviously for like the last 10 years.
Yeah, I will say this though, and I want you to think hard. I mean, people say, I think this has always been within the Democrat Party, but it's gotten much worse. Let me tell you, and I'll prove it to you. When Barack Obama ran for president in 2008, he ran for marriage between one man and one woman. He ran with American flags behind him at every single rally. He ran that America was a great country and we could do better. He ran that the Iraq war was not the pro-American thing to do. He ran as a center-right candidate. If you actually look at how he ran back, and I know might be stunning for you to hear, go back and listen to how he camouflaged and masked his own ideology and policy. And it came out at times, don't get me wrong, the Joe the Plumber stuff, we're only a couple days away from fundamentally transforming us. There was radicalism that slipped out. But more times than not, he would talk about firing bad teachers and promoting good ones, giving tax cuts for all Americans, and that only a small portion of Americans should pay more. I mean, now all of a sudden we have a completely different conversation that's happened just within 10 years. That would make Obama, I mean, you go back to Obama, he says, yes, we need a wall, we need to kick people out of our country that come here illegally. Or he says, there's no merit to line cutting. All these sorts of things. Like, oh my goodness, this is stuff that would be considered radical right-wing ideology today. And so we have moved so quickly. And what happened? As soon as Barack Obama took the presidency in 2008, the professors on campus saw a license to indoctrinate. They said, now we got our guy. Now we're going to do our big offensive. And we did not do any sort of counteroffensive on the college campuses in 2008, 2009, 10. Now, they were doing this for years. But I could tell you, and I could prove it, through an analysis of syllabi, through an analysis of what the professor taught. As soon as Obama took the presidency, they saw their moment. They seized it. You know who was a college student under Barack Obama? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Yeah. You know who was a college student under Barack Obama? Ilhan Omar. All of a sudden, the professor said, now we've been waiting for this. And they went for it. And they went for it aggressively. Now you're seeing the fruits of that indoctrination.
This may be too simplistic, but I believe it's true. When Democrats talk about moderating, they move to the right, or what they consider the center right, and they disguise themselves as either right or center right.
Yes.
The right never moves to the left. Did you ever notice that? They never moderate to the left.
Well, maybe.
Democrats just talk about it. They never do it. They just talk. They talk the talk.
Yeah.
I don't know of any Republican who ever says, well, I'm going to go more left in order to get more people to vote for me.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that maybe Mitt Romney did when he ran for president. I mean, he became more centrist, but I mean, I will say that
but he wasn't right to begin with.
No, I totally agree with you. Yeah. I agree. I mean, I will say this is that we are actually a center-right country, and in order to be successful as a national politician, you have to run as more conservative. And so here are three things that Hillary Clinton was forced to say that she didn't believe in. We're still a country where you have to work hard to get things. We're still a country that believes in religious freedom. These are fun. These are right-wing values now. Oh my goodness. And here's what's going to happen is you have Pete Buttigieg and you have these people that are being these radical, incendiary candidates, Kamala Harris, so on and so forth, that are denouncing these core ideas, that are saying they don't believe in this stuff.
Well, Pete Buttigieg's dad was a Marxist professor in Notre Dame.
Again, it all comes back from the corruption of the university.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so how do we push back?
Well, that's part of the work that I'm doing at Turning Point USA and why I love podcasts like yours. First of all, you have to reclaim and you have to at least fight on the terrain of higher education. We come at it from knowing we are not going to win on higher education. We're just not. They're so entrenched, but boy, can we have victories. we can have victories, we can disrupt, and we can move the goalposts. If we can move things 5%, we can move things 10%. That's a huge victory. Okay?
How do you do that? What do you do, Charlie?
We form college chapters. We train activists. We have events on campus. I speak on countless events all across the country. We have a huge impact with what we're doing there.
You have to have heroic people to do this, so Charlie, because you're talking to young people who are like 18 to 22, who are taking on a mantle of saying, okay, I'm going to go out and stand up for this, and I'm going to have a mob of people just put me down day in and day out.
That's exactly right. So we have to have students that have courage and conviction and clarity of thought. And that's really kind of what is embedded in the ethic of Turning Point USA. And the other thing is the creation of media, which is why I've launched a podcast, which is why I know you guys have success in your podcast, where you can go directly to the consumer, outside of all the noise, outside of all the BS, and tell the truth and have people really, be educated and garnered around these sort of philosophy and ideas. Listen,
Charlie, is there anything that you'd like to leave us with?
Well, I appreciate the time, and I do have to scoot, so thank you guys for having me. But just anyone listening, please subscribe to my podcast, and you guys are patriots. We agree on so much, and just such an honor to be with you guys today.
Well, it's our honor to have you, Charlie. It really is. And Mark?
What can we do to help you at Turning Point?
Just go to tpusa.com. If you know students that want to get involved, we'd love to get them involved. Just have other young people that you might know. If you got some money, pitch it in. That helps, but it's not the most important thing. Just spread the message, and together we'll save this country.
We'll have links to Charlie's website, to his social media, also to his podcast in the show notes. So you just go to the show, bluntforcetruth.com, look for the Charlie Kirk episode. Charlie, is there anything that Chuck and I can do on a personal level? Is there ever a time where you would want one of us to appear at one of your college programs or something?
We would love that. Yeah, and just keep praying for us. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
So that's the most important thing. So.
The great Charlie Kirk.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, guys.
And thank you so much. Godspeed, and we'll see you next time on Blunt Force Truth.
You bet. Thanks.